The story begins with a middle-aged man withdrawing money from an ATM. But if he pulled out a massive stack of cash, it would be perfectly normal because he's loaded. But life is unfair, so even a single hair never grows straight. The old man goes to withdraw money, but his face shows immense fear. The withdrawal process starts as usual, but the ATM asks if he wants to start a deal. After he nods in agreement, in the underground parking lot, a luxurious but bizarre car immediately appears, crashes through a wall, and takes the old man to a place called the Financial District. Standing in that area, a young man in a black robe mutters some nonsense about money. He must be Mikuni, the master of this district. While a man sips a golden red wine, a pink-haired guy approaches. His name is Masakaki. He announces that today, the master will have a deal with that middle-aged man. The battle has been agreed upon by both sides. Immediately after, Mikuni and the old man summon mysterious creatures using cards. The middle-aged man screams, charging into attack, but Mikuni remains calm. The man uses every trick to win and get the money. It doesn't take long for the fight to quickly end, because Mikuni completely outclassed the middle-aged man. He achieved an overwhelming victory, and precisely because he lost the deal, the very next morning, the old man rushed to the subway tracks and committed suicide. In another development, our main character, Kimimaro, a poor student busy with his part-time jobs at the convenience store. Hanabi, his university classmate, arrives and gives Kimimaro study materials for tomorrow's test. He was incredibly happy and thrilled about this, until he learned that Hanabi went with her boyfriend. It's true, when the main character hasn't awakened his power yet, flowers wither and butterflies stay away. That night, as he was deeply engrossed in his homework for tomorrow's class test, a patch of light suddenly appeared in Kimimaro's house. Immediately after, he opened the door, and Masakaki appeared. The pink-haired man introduces himself as a human resources manager from the Midas Bank. You've just heard. Kimimaro immediately refused to welcome him, thinking he was some kind of multi-level marketing scammer. A poor student with empty pockets. How could he have money to invest in stocks and banks? But as soon as he closed the door, Masakaki appeared inside the house, right behind Kimimaro. In that instant, the space in the room became abnormal, surrounded by a thick cloud of white bones. The pink-haired man states that in the space, time is completely still, so he can review his lessons while listening to him preach. In the East, the Financial District is holding selections for the position of entrepreneur, and the randomly chosen one is Kimimaro. Yogasaki Kimimaro, 19 years old, a second-year student at Heisei University of Economics. Masakaki correctly states all of his information. The position of entrepreneur here is a simple job of living a life of leisure. Masakaki also reveals that if Kimimaro agrees to this deal, he will immediately become rich. However, when Kimimaro realized that the condition was to mortgage his own future, he refused outright without hesitation. Handsome, beautiful, smart, fragrant. Those are things my brother doesn't have, but our main character isn't greedy for wealth. 3 generations of vegetables would be fine. Masakaki still hasn't given up on his intention to recruit Kimimaro. He says Kimimaro can have a comfortable life without becoming an office worker. Just then, he immediately woke up, thinking it was just a silly dream. The next morning, Kimimaro went to the ATM to withdraw money and found 500,000 yen mysteriously in his bank account. It's true, getting rich overnight is real, guys. Because of the sudden large sum of money, Kimimaro thought about it deeply. At school, he couldn't even focus on talking to Hanabi, after receiving advice from his senior colleagues at the convenience store, that it was probably just a mistaken transfer. If luck gives you something, just spend it. So he decided to go back to the ATM again to withdraw money and invite Hanabi for bubble tea. The moment the money was withdrawn, Masakaki immediately appeared behind Kimimaro. The pink-haired man continued his mind-control jutsu, saying that if Kimimaro followed him, he could win Hanabi over. Kimimaro could even meet his father. As a man, Kimimaro remained firm in his stance, but then Masakaki pulled out a card. He was immediately mesmerized by it. Right after regaining consciousness from his daze, Kimimaro realized he was sitting in a luxurious, bizarre taxi. The car sped through space and quickly took him to a place called Midas Bank Plaza. In the Financial District, it was a vast area. The people called entrepreneurs there simply idled and enjoyed themselves. Through giant lenses placed in the middle of the plaza, Kimimaro discovered that each person was followed by a different and strange creature. Masakaki then explained to him that they are called assets. They are personal assets representing each person's future and are tools to assist them in the deals that take place weekly. Right above the plaza was a board displaying all the data and stocks of the deal opponents. Every entrepreneur here must participate in a deal, at least once a week. It will be both your right and your obligation. Meanwhile, Mikuni is inside, betting with other entrepreneurs that a rookie kid is badly dressed as a default skin. In a free game like Kimimaro wouldn't amount to anything. While still disoriented, like someone in the late stages of amnesia, Kimimaro was pushed by Masakaki into the space of a deal. He followed the instructions, placed his hand on his card, and an asset appeared. It was a very cute lowly girl named Msu, also a rookie like Kimimaro. He was very disappointed that his asset wasn't as fierce and intimidating as his opponents. The tree wants to be quiet, but the wind keeps blowing. Msu went into a rage when she saw a rookie daring to disrespect her, so she outright punched him, giving him psychological trauma. Then the clock started counting down. The fat guy and his asset immediately charged, showering Kimimaro with attacks, forcing Msu to take them. Msu took many serious wounds to protect the clumsy Kimimaro, who was still bewildered, like a fool wearing a hat, because he still didn't understand what the hell was going on. Temporarily shaking off the opponent, Msu tells him not to worry about her, but to try to keep himself from getting hit by the fat guy, because each time he will have money deducted from his account, potentially leading to bankruptcy. Life has its ups and downs, but it's never been rich, so Kimimaro doesn't care about bankruptcy. He's only worried about Msu's injuries. This is called dying of vanity before dying of heart disease, folks. This made the asset girl furious, and she smacked him a few more times. At the same time, Mikuni, along with the reporter and other entrepreneurs, watched the deal. Right after being discovered by the fat guy, Msu quickly took many more fatal blows from him, just to protect Kimimaro completely. Our main character just stood there, screaming like a useless idiot. After shaking off the fat guy for the second time, the wounds on Msu's body were mysteriously recovering quickly, while Kimimaro had calmed down and asked her to teach him how to fight. Unfortunately, at this moment, the fat guy discovered them. Msu once again was crushed under a giant iron ball to save Kimimaro. At this point, Kimimaro was forced to confront the fat guy directly. Kimimaro quickly followed Msu's instructions. He swiped his hand over the card he had earlier, which was the ritual to invest 10 million yen in her to charge up. Msu unleashed a powerful blow, easily incinerating the giant iron ball and simultaneously inflicting massive damage, completely defeating the opponent. This result surprised Mikuni and the reporter Takajizaki, because no rookie had ever won their first deal before. Kimimaro was even an idiot who knew nothing about the rules but still won. Back to Kimimaro. After topping up his game to easily outclass his opponent, his account balance tripled. He heard that Msu was safe, so he fainted with relief. The next morning, when he woke up, Kimimaro found himself back in his familiar room. Just as he was thinking the battle last night was just a dream, Masakaki suddenly appeared again right behind him. He informed Kimimaro to continue enjoying the joy of victory and that he would pick him up next week. He also told Kimimaro that if he went bankrupt in the financial district, his fate in the real world would also be incredibly harsh. So our main character couldn't refuse any deal. Then Kimimaro was shown by the pink-haired young man how to talk to his asset through the card. So he asked about Msu's health, which made her very curious why he would worry about an asset. That afternoon, Kimimaro went to the ATM to check his current account balance, and the young man was stunned by the massive amount, 33,500,000 yen. This huge amount of money made him incredibly anxious. He couldn't concentrate on listening to lectures in class. Hanabi noticed Kimimaro's distracted demeanor, constantly staring at the card. At the same time, in the Midas Bank's operating area, Mikuni had also instructed his assistant to investigate Kimimaro's background for 3 generations. After returning from the financial district, Kimimaro suddenly began to distinguish the black Midas bills, but to others, they still looked like normal Japanese yen. He asked Msu what would happen if he used those black bills, but she didn't know either. Kimimaro tried to avoid using them, and this led him to big trouble with a thuggish customer. Unexpectedly, Mikuni, disguised as a civilian, appeared and subtly helped him get rid of the aggressive ruffian. Once outside, to thank Mikuni for his help, Kimimaro bought him a can of coffee at the convenience store, which made Mikuni laugh until he cried. As soon as he heard the old man mention the black bills, Kimimaro realized that Mikuni was also someone from the financial district. He also revealed that he had watched Kimimaro's first deal with the fat guy yesterday. Mikuni then explained to Kimimaro that Midas money is from Midas Bank, and anyone returning from the financial district can see it. He emphasized that nothing would happen if Kimimaro used that Midas money. But Kimimaro countered that the pink-haired clown had said his future was the collateral. Mikuni, however, considered using one's future as collateral to produce money to be perfectly normal. But thanks to this conversation, Mikuni indirectly revealed to Kimimaro that he once knew his currently missing father. After introducing himself as Mikuni Sakiro and saying that he would help Kimimaro, to the best of his ability if needed, he left. At the same time, a mysterious blonde woman was monitoring their secret meeting through a security camera. The mysterious girl's name is Sato. In reality, Sato's true identity is a female investigator for an organization probing the long-standing purpose of the financial district, or in short, she's a cop monitoring an illegal financial organization. She had visited the financial district 51 times, and 11 of those times she directly participated in a deal. Yet Sato is currently still an apprentice entrepreneur. But she is still very skilled and formidable, as she is the only investigator to have infiltrated this dangerous financial organization. Sato has a deal scheduled every Wednesday. Thanks to the help of her asset, a giant white wolf, she always tries absolutely not to lose, because if she goes bankrupt, she will be expelled from the financial district. Furthermore, Sato and her organization both identified Mikuni as their primary target to closely monitor, because he not only has immense influence over governments and financial corporations in the entire real world, but he also took it upon himself to establish a truly powerful alliance within the financial district. Mikuni even intends to invest Midas money into the real world. Therefore, to Sato, Mikuni is a mysterious and dangerous ghost. After the unexpected conversation with the old man Mikuni the night before, the very next day, Kimimaro returned to meet his aunt, Kyoko, for the first time since he graduated high school. The purpose of this visit was for him to ask for more information about his father. Kyoko revealed to Kimimaro that after his parents passed away, they left behind some items related to stocks or shares. After examining the items left by his missing father, Kimimaro was very surprised to find a notebook with the Midas Bank symbol inside. He was completely stunned when he turned to the last page of the notebook. Immediately, Kimimaro asked Msu how to meet the pink-haired clown Masakaki, and she said he might be at Midas Bank right now. Msu even noticed that Kimimaro's face now had strange and frightening signs. Upon returning to the financial district, he met Masakaki. As soon as he saw the pink-haired clown, he immediately rushed to ask about the notebook his father left behind after going missing. No matter how hard he tried to ask, Masakaki refused to reveal any information about Kimimaro's father. Kimimaro thought that because of this notebook, he was chosen for the entrepreneur position in the financial district, but Masakaki simply said it was just a coincidence. Just then, Mikuni appeared right behind Kimimaro. He came for private business with Kimimaro. Afterward, Mikuni unexpectedly took him to meet the info broker, Takatazaki, so Kimimaro could ask about his father firsthand. And surprisingly, Takatazaki knew Yuga. Who is Kimimaro's father? He asked Kimimaro what he was to him, and Kimimaro honestly replied that he was Yuga's son. After a furtive glance with Mikuni behind them, Takatazaki had Mikuni swipe a card to transfer 100,000 Midas as a service fee. Only then did he reveal information about Yuga to Kimimaro. It's true that money isn't everything, but without money, you'll be blind to information. Takatazaki recounted that Yuga, that is, Kimimaro's missing father, once a very powerful player in this financial district. He was addicted to deals and was very good at them, but he couldn't avoid a severe defeat, which immediately led to bankruptcy. If he went bankrupt, it meant squandering his future, so he couldn't talk to his family, friends, and even relatives. Finally, Kimimaro's father took his own life. His body was unidentifiable, so the authorities temporarily put the suicide case aside. Next, when Kimimaro wanted to know more about his father's personality and true self, Takatazaki continued, saying that Yuga was severely obsessed with money. Even for a few cents, he would personally earn as much money as possible, which is why Kimimaro's father was nicknamed the miser by everyone here. The info broker also gave him another important piece of information. Since he is Yuga's son, he will inherit good luck in deals just like his father. But Kimimaro should also be careful. Don't let the fate of suicide repeat itself. After finishing the conversation with Takatazaki, Kimimaro's mood became extremely heavy. He was disappointed and blamed his father for choosing an abnormal life for money, then abandoning him and his poor mother. But the old man Mikuni didn't think so. He believed Kimimaro's father was just trying to earn more money, to make his and his mother's lives more comfortable and fulfilling. Mikuni also advised Kimimaro that he should determine his own goal for making money, because even if he wanted to start over, he couldn't do anything without money. Therefore, Kimimaro needs to continue making deals, earn a lot of money and spend it on something. Saving money will make him happy, but it will never change the things around him. After being lectured by Mikuni for a while, his mind was completely blank, and he immediately burst into tears. In a hidden corner at that time, Sato was still on duty, monitoring all of Mikuni's daily activities and reporting back to the organization. However, she also had a conflict with her superior. Sato genuinely wanted to prevent the intentional circulation of Midas money in the real world, while her boss believed that preventing it would lead to extremely serious consequences. A few days later, the mysterious black taxi came to pick up Kimimaro again, quickly taking him back to the financial district to participate in this week's mandatory deal. But what was truly astonishing was that Kimimaro's opponent in the second battle was his university professor, Ibarra. It turned out that Ibarra had been participating in this financial district for almost a year, and his goal was to earn extra income for his family. From what Kimimaro knew, his professor Ibarra was about to welcome their third child with his wife. But it seemed like their family planning issues didn't cause them any financial stress, because with a house on the main street and a wealthy entrepreneur father, they didn't have to worry about money. Wife, just have the kids. I'll take care of everything. In reality, Ibarra had been earning extra income from the deals he won in this financial district. Returning to the current battle, Kimimaro didn't know what to do when he had to face his professor directly. But Ibarra didn't hesitate to make the first move. He always maintained a polite and elegant demeanor in the lecture hall. But when faced with wealth or poverty, he showed himself to be quite devious. Indeed, with money, all teacher-student sentiment vanishes. Immediately, Ibarra ordered his asset to attack his student with poison, causing Kimimaro immense pain and losing a lot of money. Then he decided to unleash his final move to finish off Kimimaro, aiming to end the boring battle quickly. However, at the most dangerous moment, Msu quickly ran to Kimimaro and immediately told him to sell one of her 10 stocks. And Mikuni, standing outside, immediately bought it back for 50 million yen. That helped Kimimaro gather enough money to invest in Msu, who unleashed a mid-level attack that completely defeated Ibarra. From the start, the professor thought he would easily beat the clueless rookie student, but he ended up getting screwed. Unable to accept the fact that he had finally lost a deal, Ibarra was utterly shocked. But then the clown Masakaki appeared out of nowhere and immediately expelled him from the financial district. After the deal ended, Kimimaro was very curious about selling stocks. So Msu explained that each asset has 10 stocks, and their owners can sell a maximum of 9 stocks and then must buy them back. He also didn't forget to thank Mikuni for his help earlier, but Mikuni just said he simply wanted the asset stock to increase the company's profit, which is why he invested in Kimimaro. When he returned home after the battle, Kimimaro asked the old driver of the financial district what terrible things would happen if he lost and went bankrupt, and the driver said he didn't know either. But returning to real life was quite interesting. Kimimaro found himself foolish for talking to this eccentric old man. A moment later, at the Gilded Alliance headquarters, the assistant was reporting some important information to Mikuni. The current membership of Gilded is over 1,200 people, and controls about a third of the financial district, and if it surpasses 50%, Mikuni will be able to control almost all the impacts of the financial district. It turns out that the mysterious old man Mikuni's ultimate goal is to change the current operating system of the financial district and end it completely. At the same time, he also wants to persuade Kimimaro to join the Gilded Alliance. Back to the real world. The next morning in class, Kimimaro was extremely worried and anxious about his professor's fate, but Ibarra still came to school to teach calmly as usual. When class ended, Kimimaro immediately followed him to ask about his situation, and Ibarra invited him to his house to talk in more detail. That afternoon, Kimimaro went to Ibarra's house and learned that things were not as simple as he had thought. After the night Ibarra lost to Kimimaro and went bankrupt in the financial district, his 3 children immediately disappeared. Even the third child, still in his wife's womb, no longer existed in this world. Everyone in the real world, except Kimimaro and Ibarra, didn't remember the existence of the 3 poor children, not even the wife. Nevertheless, Ibarra didn't blame his student for winning against him in a deal last night, because if Kimimaro had lost, his life would surely have been negatively affected a lot. If there's anyone to blame, it's himself for not understanding the serious consequences of using his future as collateral to earn money from the very beginning. At the same time, Ibarra also expressed regret for not joining the Gilded Alliance sooner. He also explained to his young student that Gilded is an organization founded by Mikuni, with the aim of reducing the impact of the financial district on the normal world. In other words, a losing entrepreneur returning to the real world would suffer less loss. It would simply be a loss, but not bankruptcy. However, if he joined that alliance, winning a deal would not yield the same profits. For this reason, Ibarra refused, but now he deeply regrets it, though it's too late. Before parting ways, Ibarra clearly instructed Kimimaro that he must never lose any deal, because he is the only person in this world who has memories of his 3 lovely children. Hearing these words from his university professor made Kimimaro's mood even heavier. The next day, Mikuni had a rather important deal with another high-level playboy named Kikuchi, so he told Kimimaro to come observe him fight and learn. Everyone there was extremely excited to watch Mikuni's deal, because a battle between 2 high-level playboys is always captivating. Before the battle began, Mikuni asked old Kikuchi if he really didn't want to join his alliance, but the old man completely ignored the question, and so the deal officially began. Kikuchi immediately commanded his asset, named Hearst, to transform into countless mirrors surrounding Mikuni. With his asset, Kazu, he continuously launched dangerous attacks at both, causing Mikuni's money to rapidly decrease. However, the onlookers outside assessed this decline as stable and Kikuchi would not profit if this situation continued, because Hearst is an asset that requires a huge operating cost. Naturally understanding this, Kikuchi immediately opened an order to sell Hearst stock to a group of entrepreneurs whom he had previously agreed with bought in, thereby holding a significantly superior amount of money to Mikuni, and completely overpowered him. However, when only 20 seconds remained in the match, Mikuni unexpectedly activated Kazu's White Knight skill, allowing his 2 remaining assets, Sleeping Beauty and Queen, to appear on the battlefield. The 2 assets quickly joined forces to destroy Hearst core, allowing Mikuni to use his ultimate move to finish off his opponent, Kikuchi. This old playboy had truly lost a deal, but perhaps he wouldn't face too much trouble in the real world, because Mikuni had tried not to make the outcome of their battle to despair it. Witnessing this, our main character, Kimimaro, seemed to understand that he needed to possess terrifying power like the old man Mikuni, to have the ability to fully control the outcome of a deal to minimize the suffering he might cause others. Immediately after, Mikuni diligently guided Kimimaro on ways to control the outcome of a deal. First, to try and minimize the impact on the real world, he had to win, but not gain too much profit. Second is to have the ability to judge. In other words, he needed to accurately assess himself and, of course, his opponent from all aspects. Be able to pay means precisely controlling all aspects of information and then accurately assessing the opponent. Especially in deals, the asset is the most important factor, which is why Kimimaro decided to start learning how to cooperate more effectively with his asset. Monsieur. In his very next deal, Kimimaro tried practicing control on a schedule once he was confident of victory. But Monsieur had no idea about this, so their coordination had a flaw, allowing the opponent to turn the situation around. As a result, Monsieur got a black eye, and Kimimaro lost. At the same time, Mikuni and his assistant were performing a transaction called collecting deal income fees from other entrepreneurs in the financial district. Immediately after, he met a man called the vice president to propose buying back the entire national debt. It turned out that the truth was Mikuni was trying to solve the nation's budget deficit to help the citizens of Japan. What a handsome and benevolent person. Especially rich, right guys? Let's get Mikuni to be our husband. Back to Kimimaro, even though it was just a small loss. But he still feared that his loved ones would encounter misfortune, so he quickly called to check on his aunt Kyoko's life. Kimimaro immediately received news that his aunt had been hospitalized for an appendectomy, but her condition wasn't as serious, so she would be discharged after only a week. Kyoko also told her nephew not to worry too much, as her health was still very good for her age. The very next morning, Kimimaro quickly rushed to school to ask if Hanabi was okay, and Hanabi said that she was perfectly fine, and had even bought a very pretty dress to prepare for her upcoming internship. And Kimimaro's only punishment after losing the deal last night was failing one course. That's it. This also brought him a sigh of relief. Meanwhile, Sato was secretly relaying information she gathered in the financial district to her superiors. On the subway, learning that the impact of the lost deal wasn't too severe, Kimimaro casually headed home for a break. While waiting for his instant noodles to cook, he checked on Sue. She said she'd recovered, but asked why Kimimaro hadn't warned her about his plan to only aim for a draw in the deal. Because of it, her opponent landed a painful punch to her face, leaving Sue utterly furious and frustrated. My face isn't meant to be pummeled, got it, buddy. As Kimimaro listened to Sue's detailed lecture, his noodles finished cooking. At first, Sue was disgusted watching him eat, but after he explained that eating noodles brought joy and happiness, she wanted to try some too. Kimimaro wanted to feed Sue a bite, but it felt a bit awkward, so he promised she'd get a taste another time. Then he devoured the entire cup of noodles himself. After losing to Mikuni, Kikuchi was only lightly affected, so he continued to participate in another deal. In his next battle, he faced another high-level entrepreneur named Saizawa. Kikuchi used his usual tactic, ordering his asset, Hearst, to transform into glass panels to trap his opponent. But Saizawa scoffed. That's old news. His asset immediately neutralized the old attack and dealt massive damage back to Kikuchi. In the end, he suffered a crushing defeat, quickly went bankrupt, and was expelled from the financial district. In the real world, not only was Kikuchi imprisoned for corruption, but his Basu pharmaceutical company plummeted, losing customer trust. Kimimaro also met with Professor Ibarra, who explained that Basu's sudden collapse would destroy the futures of over 10,000 employees. The consequences of a deal could truly be this devastating. Even in Ebra's real life, his wife had vanished as if she never existed. A few days later, in the financial district, as Msu ate noodles and evaluated Kimimaro's deal control plan, the hunter, Takatazaki, unexpectedly appeared. He offered Kimimaro some hot info on Kikuchi's Basu pharmaceutical for 1 million yen. Kimimaro, eager for news about Basu, agreed to pay him. Looks like our main character became a billionaire overnight, guys. He didn't even flinch at $1 million. After receiving the money, Takatazaki revealed that another pharmaceutical company called FI Pharma, founded 5 years prior, would acquire Basu along with its debt. Although FI Pharma was presented as a foreign enterprise, its true owner was Mikuni. This move would lessen the deal's impact on the real world. Upon learning this, Kimimaro confronted Mikuni, asking why he'd done it. Mikuni explained that the Midas money had already integrated into the real world, and it was becoming increasingly difficult to stop it. That's why Mikuni formed the Guild Alliance to maintain balance between the two sides, by using Midas money to limit the impact of deals on the real world. After their conversation, Kimimaro officially joined Mikuni's Guild Alliance, although some members felt he wasn't worthy, because Kimimaro hadn't grasped the core operations of the guild, and couldn't yet balance a deal. Mikuni didn't care. Mikuni even considered mimicking Kimimaro's unconventional strategy of letting his asset rest. At that moment, at the headquarters of the intelligence agency, Sato continued to argue with her superiors about stopping the financial district's operations and the Midas money. After returning, Sato continued to track information on another high-level entrepreneur in the financial district. His name was Sonozagao, 29 years old, with an astounding deal record of 56 wins and only 1 loss. Sonoza's current personal assets exceeded 9.8 billion yen, and his next deal was scheduled for this Thursday. His opponent was Kimimaro. At this moment, in the financial district, Kimimaro was chatting with Msu when Sonoza suddenly appeared, complimenting Msu on being a beautiful asset with cute horns. This made Kimimaro assume he was a creepy flirt trying to hit on an innocent girl, so he gave him an extremely contemptuous and disdainful look. But right after, Sonoza introduced himself as Kimimaro's next opponent and asked for some time to talk. It turned out his goal was for Kimimaro to voluntarily forfeit their next deal, and Sonoza would fully cover the penalty fee, which was half of Kimimaro's personal assets. Sonoza explained that even if one could balance and control the outcome of a deal, its impact on the real world was inevitable. Therefore, he believed forfeiting the match was the most effective and best method. Even so, Sonoza didn't demand an immediate answer from Kimimaro, giving him ample time to think. He also gave him a business card with his phone number so he could be contacted anytime. As soon as he finished speaking, Sonoza suddenly vanished. A moment later, at the convenience store, Kimimaro read a magazine to learn about Sonoza and discovered he represented a non-profit organization. His goal was to provide vaccines to developing countries and support various other fields. With a fresh perspective and a captivating demeanor, Sonoza was widely admired and respected. They had given him the elegant nickname, the Prince of Charity. That evening, on his way home, Kimimaro was tricked by the female spy, Sato, who claimed Kyuko was in danger and coaxed him into her car. As soon as he got in, she locked the doors and sped off. This time, Kimimaro had no escape from this warrior. At first, he thought Sato was a kidnapper extorting poor students. Who'd kidnap a broke student, bro? But she explained she was also an entrepreneur in the financial district, like him, and an intelligence agent investigating the financial district and Midas money. After hearing Sato's resume, Kimimaro felt relieved and followed her so they could talk. During their conversation, Sato candidly remarked that Mikuni's current method of using Midas money to stabilize the economy was merely a temporary solution, and this action would lead to severe consequences in the future. She believed that to resolve this issue thoroughly and completely, the entire system, the entire operation of the financial district, needed to be dismantled and destroyed. And Sato wanted Kimimura's cooperation. While he was still hesitant, because he had already agreed to join Mikuni's guild alliance, Sato dropped Kimimaro off right there in the car, and told him that she could see other issues in his eyes, more important than just money. Just then, Sato noticed a car tailing her. Kimimaro quickly used his card to summon the mysterious taxi driver, who whisked them away to safety. Before parting ways, Sato also advised Kimimaro to agree to meet Sonoza and talk, because he was also a high-level entrepreneur who genuinely cared about completely ending the financial district's influence. Although his mind was still a jumble of thoughts, the very next day, Kimimaro decided to meet Sonoza. Like Sato, Sonoza also believed that what Mikuni's guild alliance was doing was akin to sacrificing the future for present stability, which is why he readily refused their invitation to join. In the financial district, knowing Kimimaro would be swayed after meeting Sato and Sonoza, Mikuni deliberately sought him out to talk. Immediately, Mikuni refuted their overly optimistic view of the future, stating it was only for the strong, while, for those struggling to survive day to day, the present was all that truly mattered. Mikuni also revealed that he was the only one who had ever won a deal against Sonoza, and that Sonoza had never experienced poverty and couldn't truly grasp the smell of blood money. Concluding their conversation, Mikuni's final advice to Kimimaro for his next deal was that only fighting and winning could allow him to survive in this brutal world. The next day, despite his lingering hesitation, Kimimaro decided to deal with Sonoza. Unlike his usual calm demeanor, Sonoza transformed into a different person during the battle, and his asset displayed terrifying power. Msu, once again, shielded and protected Kimimaro from a dangerous attack, taking the full brunt of the damage, leaving her severely injured. Kimimaro was utterly terrified and heartbroken. It also made him realize that he didn't want to win, nor did he want to lose. He simply needed to protect what was his. Finally, Kimimaro and his asset, Msu, combined their efforts, unleashing two consecutive mid-level attacks with immense destructive power, completely defeating Sonoza in the deal. This immediately caused Sonoza to suffer relatively heavy losses in the real world. The next morning, when Kimimaro went to find Sonoza at his office, he was with some friends and colleagues, preparing to move elsewhere to continue nurturing hope through other charities worldwide. Simultaneously, instead of being angry about his defeat, Sonoza had great faith that Kimimaro was the one who could rise up and overthrow the financial district. And before leaving, he asked Kimimaro to deliver his favorite instant noodles to Msu as an apology for seriously injuring her in the battle. At this point, the story rewound in time, returning to Mikuni's past, before he became a high-level entrepreneur in the financial district. Since his university days, Mikuni's father had forced him to follow his business path. His father even constantly instilled warped ideas about the power of money into his son, saying that a single bill was just a bill, but when stacked into a pile, it wouldn't just be money, it would become power. A terrifying power that could shake the entire world. After graduating from university, Mikuni quickly became his father's personal secretary, which frustrated him to the point of giving up his lifelong passion for music, and even disbanded the university band he had previously signed a contract to join. Mikuni could only despair and follow his father's demands. His father's main job was networking. He used money for both good and bad purposes. Then he strengthened those connections with that money. If one side fell, the other would fall too. He called that power. However, Mikuni's father was not the creator of that system, but merely used it once it was already in place. Mikuni once had a younger sister named Takako, but she was very ill since childhood, spending most of her time in a hospital bed. Mikuni genuinely loved Takako and saw her as the only person he wanted to protect. He even tried to follow his father's wishes solely to earn enough money for his sister's treatment. After every shift at the corporation, Mikuni would visit the hospital to check on Takako's health and chat with her. They thought peaceful times would pass, and gradually the sun would shine on their lives. But later, Mikuni's father's corporation struggled and faced bankruptcy. One linked entity ran into trouble, dragging down the entire network, and the heaviest impact fell upon the Mikuni family's corporation, just when they thought things couldn't get worse. At the same time, Takako's condition worsened. All hospitals in Japan were helpless with her surgery, so the only remaining option was to take her to the US for treatment, which might extend her life. Receiving this news from the doctor, Mikuni felt as if he'd been struck down, but he was determined to save his poor sister at all cost. That very evening, Mikuni went home and spoke to his father, hoping he would send his daughter to the US for treatment. But completely contrary to Mikuni's hopes, his father refused to send Takako to the US, stating that all family assets were needed to resolve the corporation's problems. Even if Takako died, the corporation absolutely had to thrive. He even said that while he was a father, business was the most important thing to him. To him, there were things more important to protect than his own two children. Because of those harsh words, Mikuni no longer considered him his father. He decided to earn money himself to continue Takako's treatment, but shortly after, Mikuni was locked in his room. Days and nights passed in despair until Mikuni was finally allowed to leave his room, by which time his sister's health had become critical. When Mikuni rushed to the hospital, Takako was on a ventilator, her breathing weaker than ever. It turned out that Takako herself didn't want to go to the US for treatment, not wanting to leave Japan or her brother. She just wanted to talk more with Mikuni. In the end, What was bound to happen did. That very night, Takako fell into an eternal sleep, and that was the last time Mikuni spoke to his sister. Sometime later, the pink-haired clown Masakaki arrived and invited Mikuni to join the financial district. Having lost his sister and no longer wanting to stay in his cold-hearted father's house, he didn't hesitate to agree. After arriving and learning about the financial district, Mikuni realized he could use it to protect people in the real world, people who shared a fate like his and his sister's. From then on, Mikuni formed the Guild Alliance. Back to the present. After winning the deal against Sonoza, Kimimaro and Msu's relationship grew closer and more intimate. She openly shared her thoughts as an asset with her master, and Kimimaro, in turn, understood Msu better. One day, while taking Msu out for her favorite noodles, Kimimaro unexpectedly ran into Mr. Fatty, his first opponent when he came to the financial district. The three sat down to eat and chat happily. When Kimimaro asked him about the secret behind the bond between entrepreneurs and their assets, however, Mr. Fatty didn't know much about it. Meanwhile, at a nearby table, an entrepreneur and his cronies were verbally abusing and bullying a female asset. At first, Kimimaro wanted to avoid trouble with the thugs, so he and Msu started to leave. But after a short distance, he immediately returned to the noodle shop and taught that scumbag entrepreneur a lesson. At the same time, our main character, the hero saving the damsel in distress, got beaten black and blue himself. Despite not understanding anything about the human world, Kimimaro's action of protecting another asset made Msu fall head over heels for him. After returning home, they watched a romantic film together, and a scene of the main characters kissing appeared. This truly piqued Msu's curiosity. With his somewhat naive experience in romance, Kimimaro explained to her that kissing was an act of expressing affection between two people who truly loved each other. Hearing this, Msu became very curious and suggested they try kissing. How would our main character, a total virgin, know how to kiss, guys? Because of that, the young man quickly refused, giving the reason that you had to truly love each other to kiss. From then on, Msu realized that her feelings for Kimimaro were indeed love. That night, while in the familiar black taxi heading to the financial district, Kimimaro suddenly noticed some extremely strange things. The real world outside seemed to have changed a bit from before, but the old taxi driver thought he was just imagining things due to his anxiety. But Kimimaro's worries about the future of this world, which he'd imagined, were increasingly threatening to become reality. At the same moment, in the financial district, Mikuni's Guild Alliance and the entrepreneurs there were in a critical situation due to the plummeting interest rates and stock prices in Southeast Asian nations. If this trend continued, nothing would be able to stand much longer. This dire situation reminded a Guild Alliance member of a nation previously known as the Caribbean Republic. And then, right after the collapse of the North American financial districts, that nation had completely vanished from the world. If this happened similarly in the Southeast Asian financial districts, Japan would not escape the risk of annihilation. Therefore, Mikuni quickly initiated a plan called SEAM. At that time, in the real world outside, the streets began to empty due to the economic crisis. Sato met with Takatazaki to trade for a secret chip she had requested earlier. Takatazaki also revealed shocking news. There was a traitor within Mikuni's Guild Alliance. Furthermore, he mentioned having met Kimimaro's asset a long time ago, and that Msu was even connected to his father, who had killed him. Subtitles by Amara.org Community. Takatazaki wanted to sell this disturbing information to Sato, but she showed no interest in the story and turned her back, walking away. Kimimaro went to school as usual, but today he noticed an unusual change in his classmates. Even Hanabi, his best friend, was no longer as cheerful and optimistic as before. This reminded him of Sato's investigation. The future of all humanity in this real world didn't look promising. While lost in thought, Kimimaro unexpectedly encountered Professor Ibarra standing on the rooftop of a tall apartment building. He immediately ran up to check and learned that recently, Ibarra had tried every method to get back his 3 poor children and his beloved wife. He even destroyed his passionate educational research projects, but all to no avail. Finally, the professor resorted to the last option, using his own life to redeem his entire family. Hearing this, Kimimaro immediately stopped the professor and promised that he would find a way to redeem Ebra's future. Right after, he went to the financial district to find Masakaki. Confronting the pink-haired clown, Kimimaro immediately demanded that he return Professor Ebra's 3 children, the one who had previously lost to him in a deal. He offered to pay Masakaki double the amount, even 100 times more than the future Ibarra had collateralized, but Masakaki just shook his head. Because a future exchange could never be redeemed, no matter how much money was offered, Kimimaro dejectedly returned. At this moment, in the Union Alliance's territory, Mikuni was still busy with the organization members, quickly finding ways to combat the spiraling decline of the Southeast Asian financial districts. Returning after his failed attempt with Masakaki, Kimimaro sadly went to Professor Ebra's house, but he was already gone. Sensing something was wrong, he quickly went to school to ask the staff about Ibarra and learned that he had died in a traffic accident after being hit by a drunk driver. Kimimaro was completely devastated after receiving this information. He quietly sat alone in the park. Here, our protagonist became increasingly aware of the changes in this world. It seemed everything was on the verge of collapse. At the same time, at her home, Hanabi displayed a depressed expression, completely different from her usual cheerfulness and optimism. Hanabi sat cutting up letters students had written to her, all filled with loving words, until she was exhausted and collapsed on the living room sofa. She was like a doll, completely devoid of emotion. Back to Kimimaro. He was now so fed up with everything happening around him that he withdrew all the Midas money from his account and headed to the financial district. Sitting in the mysterious yet familiar car, Kimimaro fell asleep without realizing it. In his dream, he saw an image of a newborn baby girl, still nestled in her mother's loving arms. His parents were naming her, and a very familiar name echoed. At the most crucial moment, Kimimaro woke up. A moment later, in the financial district's central plaza, Kimimaro set fire to all his Midas money, with Sato's support, marking a major shift in their thinking. Sato told him that trust and belief were the most important things, and no matter how much money he burned, the bank could instantly reproduce it. It's true, money you can't spend fast enough really exists, guys. Sato also informed him that the financial district was nearing its limit. It would soon collapse. A moment later, when Kimimaro sought out Mikuni to talk, the two got into an argument due to differing viewpoints. Kimimaro began to feel that Mikuni's goal of sacrificing the future to save people in the present was too unreasonable. But Mikuni argued that without a present, how could there be a future? However, for Kimimaro, there was already a difficult situation. Thank you for watching. The present exists for the future, after all. Right at this moment, an extremely horrific event occurred. The Southeast Asian branch of the financial district officially collapsed after interest rates and stocks plummeted there. This led to the complete disappearance of a country called Singapore. Its infrastructure quickly disintegrated into dust in an instant. At this time, in the Guild Alliance area, Mikuni was urging the organization's members to quickly implement Plan C before it was too late. Let's return to 3 hours earlier, at the IFM headquarters in Washington, D.C., where a special, non-public G20 meeting was held. Not public. The discussion focused on rapid changes in the Southeast Asian market, which would inevitably trigger a major financial crisis, and humanity was facing desperation in finding capital. Furthermore, the collapse of one financial district would affect others in a chain reaction, often referred to as D. And right during that meeting, all IFM members received shocking news unfolding in Singapore. To ensure Japan wouldn't be devastated by the wave, Mikuni decided to use a special Dagnus card to demand that the pink-haired clown Masakaki start the printing press. Mikuni then used 20 years of his own future to exchange for a massive amount of black Midas money, enough to rescue 80% of banks and major corporations. At the same time, outside in the real world, the situation was utter chaos. Due to Singapore's complete disappearance without a trace, Wave C quickly spread to other Southeast Asian financial centers like Hong Kong, and not long after, it would directly hit Japan. Back in the financial district, Mikuni and the Guild Alliance members were swiftly implementing measures to minimize the impact of the wave. At this point, Wave C gradually reached Japan, immediately causing the Tokyo stock market to face a severe collapse. Despite implementing easing measures and price adjustments, transactions continued to fall beyond acceptable levels. At the most critical moment, Mikuni and the Guild appeared to provide aid. Financial experts quickly bought black Midas currency, and subsequently, the stock market showed signs of recovery, helping Japan escape Wave C. However, that very afternoon, Masakaki demanded Mikuni pay all the compensation, specifically the 20 years of future he had just collateralized. That night, while talking to Kimimaro, Sato assessed that injecting a massive amount of black Midas money into the real world would take away decades of Japan's future. Additionally, during their conversation, Sato also revealed to Kimimaro that the information hunter, Takatazaki, seemed to have some information about his asset and his father. The very next day, Kimimaro immediately went to the financial district to find Takatazaki. He asked Kimimaro if he wanted to know who his father's asset was, but he demanded a transaction fee before he would reveal anything. Kimimaro reluctantly paid up and was shown an old black and white photo. Msu was incredibly surprised, thinking she was Kimimaro's father's former asset, but the truth was not what she thought. Though their appearance was similar, his father's asset had black hair and a different name, Mua. Takatazaki further revealed that Mua was quite a powerful asset, but she had completely vanished after Ioga, Kimimaro's father, went bankrupt and was expelled from the financial district. Takatazaki also gave him an additional tip, suggesting that the similarity between the two assets might be due to a similarity in the futures of Kimimaro and his father. But Sato didn't think so. According to her, the assets being so similar represented the relationship and connection between father and son. To put it simply, Kimimaro and his father were both pursuing something similar. This also proved that, despite being money-obsessed, Ioga genuinely loved his son. The proof was that even though he went bankrupt in the financial district, Kimimaro didn't vanish from the real world, but remained healthy and handsome, appearing in this place. Afterwards, Sato gave Msu a cup of instant noodles and told her asset to remember the son of this boy, Kimimaro. In the following days, Kimimaro increasingly witnessed the clear consequences caused by Mikuni's actions. To save Japan's economy from Wave C, first, it affected his own friend, Hanabi, who once considered studying everything, now took continuous leave and no longer appeared at school. When Kimimaro called, she didn't answer. So he went to her house and was shocked by Hanabi's listless, pale, uncaring expression. But he felt relieved that she was still there. That afternoon, while taking out the trash for the convenience store, Kimimaro suddenly felt a chilling sensation, as if struck by a toxic wind. Immediately after, the problem started. The people around him had completely changed. Bustling parks were now filled only with small, poor homeless people. The crowded classroom now contained only an old, fake teacher. Even the owner of the store, where Kimimaro worked, vanished right before his eyes. Kimimaro became incredibly panicked and worried. He immediately rushed to Hanabi's house once more. And this time, the situation was even worse than that morning. She couldn't even remember her own name. The entire city was now submerged in a terrifying red hue. Even Mikuni was surprised by the impact his own decision had on the people of Japan. Back to Kimimaro. After witnessing such horrors, he resolved to cooperate with the spy, Sato, to reclaim the future for the people of Japan. He also told Msu his plan and declared that he would help her achieve a happy future, like any other normal girl. However, Msu didn't like that at all, because if she was no longer an asset, she wouldn't be able to stay and fight alongside Kimimaro. She had truly fallen for our main character. Realizing Msu's feelings for him, Kimimaro kissed her forehead, a kiss for the most important person in his life. At this point, the situation in Japan was getting worse, with only 3 children born in 1 week. That was an alarming figure. At the same time, the population was aging at a frighteningly rapid pace. A few days later, the US financial market also began to shake. Global exchange rates uniformly depreciated under the pressure of the US dollar. The US wanted to intervene in all global currencies to prevent the chain reaction effect. In other words, the US had pushed back the chain reaction of C, and C would once again return to Japan. Facing this situation, Mikuni quickly sought out Masakaki to once again use the powerful darkness card, sacrificing another 20 years of his future to print even more Midas money, despite witnessing the horrific consequences it could bring. Upon receiving news of Kimimaro, Sato, along with Takatazaki, immediately devised a detailed plan to stop Mikuni's out-of-control actions. The main problem was that only the owner of the darkness card could activate the Midas money printer, and in the financial district, only Mikuni possessed it. Sato revealed that the only way was after Mikuni used the printer. The process of printing the money and losing the future would take at least a few hours to fully manifest. During that brief window of time, Kimimaro needed to engage him in a deal and force Mikuni into bankruptcy. Then, he had to seize the darkness card and stop all operations of the money printer. Finally, return all the Midas money that had been produced back to the printer. Meanwhile, Takatazaki would exploit a traitor within Mikuni's Gen Alliance to steal a massive amount of Midas money from the organization and distribute it all to the public, causing the Japanese yen to rapidly become worthless paper. This would mean that Mikuni's vast assets would become worthless, creating an opportunity for either Kimimaro or Sato to defeat him in a final deal and seize the darkness card, reverse the money printing process, and reclaim the future that had been collateralized. In the financial district, upon receiving the information, Mikuni immediately refused to deal with Kimimaro and Sato, but the clown Masakaki warned him. If he skipped this deal, Mikuni would lose half his total assets and no longer have enough funds to control the C sector. Because of this, he was forced to enter a deal with Sato as his opponent. As for Kimimaro, as he entered the financial district, he was suddenly challenged by a member of the Gilded Alliance, named Hori. Noticing that Msu seemed unusually distressed, Kimimaro questioned Masakaki and learned that when the Midas printer was active, the assets would suffer pain because they represented the future. So, he decided to let Msu rest, while he faced Hori alone. Without Msu's support, Kimimaro was overwhelmed. Yet, seeing that Hori's asset was also affected, he seized the chance to counterattack, and severely wounded him. Once both assets recovered, Kimimaro summoned Msu, who unleashed her ultimate attack, a massive firestorm, swiftly defeating Hori. On his side, Kimimaro claimed victory. Back in the deal arena, Mikuni faced Sato. At this moment, our beautiful spy successfully seized control of Mikuni's asset, Kazu, thanks to her own asset's unique ability. However, with the sudden appearance of Q, Kazu was swiftly torn apart, and Sato was quickly defeated by Mikuni's ultimate attack. Yet, before being expelled from the financial district, Sato managed to transfer her asset to Kimimaro, hoping it would help him complete their plan. At the same time, in the real world, Takatazaki was trying to spread news to the Japanese press about impending hyperinflation, to further devalue the yen. Meanwhile, Kimimaro was trying to convince Mikuni that sacrificing the future to protect the present was a grave mistake. Just then, one of his subordinates rushed in, reporting on Takatazaki's actions outside. Without hesitation, Mikuni again ordered Masakaki to use the darkness card to print more Midas money for him. This time, he was willing to sacrifice his entire future. As Kimimaro lunged to stop him, Mikuni struck him down, sending him sprawling, stuck in a deadlock, not knowing what to do. Kimimaro was suddenly reminded by Masakaki that his card had also turned black, becoming a darkness card just like Mikuni's, by order of the higher-ups. Without hesitation, Kimimaro immediately ordered the pink-haired clown to stop the Midas money printer. This action forced him into a 1v1 deal with Mikuni. At that very moment, the situation in the real world grew increasingly chaotic. Citizens panicked as hyperinflation exploded across Japan. In the financial district, Kimimaro officially entered combat with Mikuni. Kicking off the battle, Kimimaro used an intermediate asset skill previously owned by Sato, transforming it into a clone of himself, and together they charged, showering Mikuni with attacks. But this clone technique proved ineffective, as both were swiftly cut down. Then, the White Wolf asset was even devoured partially by Q. At this point, Kimimaro was forced to summon Msu for support. Eager for a swift end to the battle, Mikuni unleashed Q's ultimate attack, causing Msu to fall completely under Q's control. However, before Msu's firestorm could even descend. Both she and Kimimaro were completely frozen by Q's attack. Surprisingly, just as Mikuni launched his finishing move, the attack in his hand suddenly disintegrated, allowing Kimimaro to narrowly escape defeat. The reason was that in the real world, Japan's Ministry of Finance had decided to temporarily suspend the circulation of the yen, revealing the true nature of the Midas money. It immediately became worthless in circulation, causing Mikuni's power to severely diminish as well. Seizing this once-in-a-millennium opportunity, Kimimaro told Msu to hold off Q while he, sword in hand, charged directly at Mikuni, finally landing a devastating blow on the old man. Suddenly, old memories of his younger sister, Takako, flashed through Mikuni's mind. He realized he was just like that cursed father, but ever since losing Takako, Mikuni had forgotten what he was fighting for. At this very moment, Masakaki suddenly appeared, announcing that the yen and Midas money becoming worthless simultaneously had helped Japan overcome the sea sector's influence. Realizing Kimimaro was right, Mikuni conceded defeat. He relinquished all decision-making power to Kimimaro. Kimimaro immediately used the darkness card to halt all operations of the money printer, thus reclaiming the entire future. This was the moment the empire built on money and power, the financial district, finally crumbled completely, becoming a pile of ashes buried deep in the past. At that time, Msu bid farewell to Kimimaro with a passionate kiss she had long wanted to share with him. As for Mikuni, he apologized to Q and chose to vanish with the district. Outside, Sato rejoiced, their plan to reclaim a bright future a success. Takatazaki and the mysterious old driver set off to wander the world. The pink-haired clown Masakaki was finally happy, no longer needing to repeat endless, meaningless deals. Upon his return, Kimimaro noticed the real world had changed greatly, but more importantly, everyone was still alive and present, and a bright future still awaited him. And with that, the series truly ends. There won't be a second season, everyone. See you all in the next series.